I'm Francisco. I'm the historian for the Banning Library District, and welcome to our first episode of Discovering the Past mini-documentary series. We're here at the beautiful Fox Cineplex in downtown Banning. It's been our constant friend since 1928 to show us live venues, live movies, and all things cinema. Unfortunately, because of sagging movie sales according to Bloomberg in 2019, they fell 4%, and all kinds of new types of ways of seeing movies, less people have been coming to the Fox over the years. But it's a terrific place. It's been our friend over the years from the Cold War through World War II, and seen a lot of great faces like Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Bob Hope, and many other celebrities. So our friend's back. We're here to enjoy the movies, and this is our first piece on the Fox. We hope you enjoy it.
If that was your assignment for the night, you were in the ticket booth, then when the tickets were no longer sold, you would go inside and you would, work as an usher or in the concession stand, wherever Mr. Gunn asked you to work. Mm-hmm. It was a very tight little box. In fact, when Mr. Gunn had to come in and check the till and count out money, it was like there was not much room. But and somewhere behind me was the money drop. I don't know exactly how he accessed that and how he put the money back there, but it was pretty much a little capsule that wasn't really there were no sensations of smell, but the sights were all the headlights from the cars I'd see going by, and then all the lines of people coming to get their tickets, and just the excitement that you saw that they had coming to see a movie that they were looking forward to. Just it was just you kind of fed off of the people that were coming in, all the patrons. Yeah. So, but indoors it was a lot more. There was a lot more social contact, because I was busy, making sure I had the tickets right and so forth, and I saw the line behind everybody, so I had to make sure I was doing everything correctly, but, speeding up the ticket purchases so everyone could come in.
Hi, my name is Frank Martinez. I've been here at the Fox Theater about a little over 30 years, maybe about 35 now, and I was an assistant manager, but I'm more like a crew leader, and
And this is a really special room for so many reasons. And tell us about the sort of decorations and the way it works.
On my right-hand side is a modern version of what they originally had. But if you look on your left-hand side, it's the original architect, and right above the ceiling is real gold leafing.
Very pretty.
They used to have it on both sides, but it used to be one big auditorium.
It's gorgeous.
Right there, you had three entrances, so you had several rows that divided 500 area more. But it used to be a balcony that sat about 30 Patriots.
Wow.
But where the walls at, were right above, higher, almost to the ceiling, would be the opening for the projector. For the projectors, like you see here, they had two projectors where they had to shift them when the reel ended.
Oh, really?
If you look at old movies, I don't think you see it anymore, but
yeah,
you see a dot. You see that first dot, that means they're ready to change. When you see the second dot, it would change it. You see another dot, and you're on the next reel already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you had to watch out for those dots as the movie was playing.
By the time I came here, it was all they call reel-to-reel system, where they had one big platter.
Uh-huh.
So I spliced it all together. Screen like it with one big screen, and you didn't have a platform,
right?
Because they didn't have live performances. They said back in around World War II, Bob Hope used to perform out here. When by the time I came around, they had little shows for the kids, like during Christmas and all the different holidays. They had special shows.
So the stage, I know, would have gone to basically the back room.
Yes, actually, the third cinema we have here used to be the dressing room.
All right, we're going to a very special part of the Fox, which is Auditorium 3. That's the one in the back. And in order to get to Auditorium 3, you actually have to leave the building, go around the alley, and back to one of my favorite places in the entire place. Take us in, Frank.
feature set.
All right, here we go.
Or smaller, like our smaller cinema. It holds now it's down to 58 seats. Before we redid the seatings, it was up to about 65.
Wow. Oh, no worries.
Yeah.
So this one's a little different, this screen
Yeah.
here, right?
Yes.
Tell us about the screen.
Okay, I don't know. It's like I said, it's a fraction of the size, and same guy puts it in, but I really don't know how they have it set up. But like I said, yeah, it's a smaller.
I think if I remember correctly, because I've seen a couple of movies here in the past, these recline a little more, these seats, right? So
Yeah.
you can see the screen better?
Yeah, I think so. Not a little bit, not that much.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, a little
Yeah,
more than
yeah,
an Auditorium 1 and 2.
yeah.
So this is actually an important piece of the Fox's history because this is where the stage would have been and the dressing rooms, like you were mentioning before, right?
Yeah.
So the important part of that is that the USO tours came through here. Bob Hope and his band, they did a lot of live performances
Yes.
in World War II. So I think we were talking a little bit about that earlier.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
So this is really where the action happened and where people would have done all those shows and broadcasted that way to the one big room back in the 40s.
I have never been back here even when they had the rest of the dressing room. I was still a kid, so so I never knew what actually the dressing room looked like back then. But I was just told from Chan Sales it was the dressing room and so forth. So
Right. Yeah, there's very few pieces of photographs or anything of the old dressing rooms.
yeah,
in the back
I
part of
noticed
the stage.
the photographs they filmed outside of the theater, but none they never shot inside the cinema.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I'm surprised he didn't do that. Keep that what it looked like back then.
Right.
So that's the only thing I found that he should have done.
I am the president of D Place Entertainment. We operate and manage the Fox Cineplex here in Banning, California.
Place Entertainment.
Yeah, so D Place Entertainment, we operate currently 4 different locations, 2 here in the Riverside County, the Banning location, and of course our Mary Pickford location out in Cathedral City. We're really about bringing a movie-going experience to our guests. We want to take these venues that we have and bring them into a modern era, upgrade them where they need upgrades, and really caretake them and curate the films we're bringing so that we can, again, continue to provide a movie-going experience to our audience and to our communities in a way that some of the larger companies kind of, miss the boat on these days. They're focused on treating people like cattle and kind of volume. We're focused more on providing an experience, and that's kind of our mission.
With why the Fox?
Well, the Fox, because it's a great little location. It's got its charisma, and it also was a situation that it became available when we were looking to expand. We definitely were able to see the potential here. Unfortunately, in this year with COVID, brakes have been put on a little bit. We've had to slow down, but as we come out of COVID, I think that people will continue to see the growth that we hope to do here and some of the amazing programs and things that we want to do to really keep this place vibrant for many years to come. Of course, very important to us. And when you're standing in the lobby and you're having that discussion with the guests and they're telling you those personal stories, it is great because it does resonate with you. You walk away with that knowledge and with that understanding of, okay, this is a unspoken contract between us and the guests here and what we have to do to continue that history.
Banning has always been about movies, and in the early days, some very important films were made in the city and surrounding areas. In January 1915, Hobart Bosworth created a picture called Buckshot John, which was to the entertainment and delight of many of the people that lived in Banning that aptly and happily participated in the film. According to an article by the Press Enterprise at the time, for filming the scene at the beginning of the movie in which Big Jake Kennedy gang is captured, the entire town of Banning turned out to witness the filming. The Enterprise wrote, "The school was dismissed, stores were deserted, and when Kennedy Buckshot John and their followers tore along Main Street, the citizens entered into the spirit of the play with great enthusiasm and helped make the scenes remarkably realistic." The first live performance venues that Banning had were its Airdome and the Banning Opera House. The Banning Opera House opened March 18, 1913, and presented a symphony from Chicago featuring the music of Schubert. We no longer have any photos of the Banning Airdome, but this is something that it would have looked very similar to. This airdome is from Las Vegas, Nevada in 1915. Banning's Airdome opened up at the corner of San Gorgonio and Livingston Streets, with pictures 3 nights a week, starting in 1891. When the Fox Theater came many decades later, its first movie was a Buster Keaton comedy classic called Steamboat Bill Jr. During the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, the Banning Theater grew in prominence and fame. During World War II, Bob Hope did a live broadcast from the stage of the Banning Theater with Les Brown and his band of renown. Other celebrities graced the storied halls of the theater, such as Natalie Wood, Dean Martin, and many others. And its fame and glory continued to grow.
So when it opened, it had some impressive Spanish colonial revival architecture, which it still does today. Spanish colonial revival was very popular for theaters and other, say, civic buildings of major importance in Southern California. Very traditional, regionally appropriate style. Still seen today there with the very elaborate terracotta details on the facade. Also the built-in ticket booth with its tile elements, things like that. And it had 650 seats, and it had a balcony, which a lot of theaters did at that point. A number of the movie studios owned their own movie theater chains, where they would exclusively show their own movies. So even though it was officially under Principal Theaters, Principal did Fox. And so that was how that worked. And then later, of course, Fox officially took it on as part of Fox West Coast. And Fox gave it the Fox name, which was a big deal because Fox owned a ton of movie theaters, probably about 500 nationally. And even in just the Fox West Coast theaters area, which was just California, Arizona, a few other local states, they owned over 200. Many of them were not named Fox because they would buy other theaters that already existed in a community, and they usually wouldn't rename them Fox. They might rename it would just be Fox and then whatever the name of the theater originally was. So in this case, they actually did rename it the Fox, which was really a big point of pride, really, because usually only their nicest and best ones were actually named Fox. Fox also did a major remodel. So they brought in a number of Art Deco elements. This was late 40s, early 50s. So the marquee was changed to the still beautiful neon marquee that's there now. With its Art Deco tower element. Towers were very common in Art Deco because it was the era of the skyscraper, and skyscrapers were going with Art Deco, and it was all about reaching the sky and technology and exploring new frontiers. And of course, the blade sign with its, again, neon was very prominent in those days and had the Art Deco swirls, the Fox logo. And then the interior also received some Art Deco elements as well. The beautiful light fixtures on the walls that are still there today. The Art Deco ceiling brackets with, again, more swirls and the floral detailing, both of which were very common in Art Deco architecture. And so Art Deco was it was seen as very, as opposed to the Spanish colonial revival original, Art Deco was really popular in theaters in this era because it was seen as very, very modern, very up to date, it was very focused on industrial design and the power of American industry and the power of American technology, which really related heavily to theaters because this was how the movies saw themselves. They were always coming out with new technology. They were always doing impressive innovations. And so Art Deco really, really fit with that. So this system worked very well for the movie studios. But it actually worked so well that they were really driving a lot of independent operators out of business. And also many communities soon had very little options other than to watch Fox films. And so in 1948, it actually became a very major Supreme Court case, which resulted in a Supreme Court decision called the Paramount Consent Decrees, named after Paramount, but it applied to all the movie studios, which basically said that they were a monopoly. And as an antitrust regulation, they needed to divest themselves of their movie theaters. And so Fox, they had to spin off their movie theater subsidiaries. So in this case, Fox West Coast, which Fox Banning was part of. And so those chains didn't close. They didn't cease to exist. They just spun off into their own companies, and then they could play whatever movies they wanted. These theaters often had sneak previews, which were test screenings of upcoming major films from the studios. And they would never announce what they were in advance. You would just get an advertisement in the paper or a banner on the theater that said, "Preview tonight," something like that. And you'd have no idea what you were going to go see. But when you would get there, you would get to see a movie that had not been released in the rest of the country, and it wasn't quite finalized. And you would have usually the stars, the director, the producers all in the audience. You would get to see a movie and your reactions to it. So the reactions of the audience in Banning or Riverside or San Bernardino, they would help those studios make cuts and edits and changes to everything from the marketing to the title to dialogues. They'd take out scenes, they'd add things based on the response they got from these local audiences. Those were generally done in the Inland Empire because when the studios made films, they didn't want to get the responses from people who lived in downtown LA or Hollywood. They wanted responses from normal Americans. And they especially wanted to know what people in, say, the Midwest would want to watch on their screens. And when they looked for somewhere that was similar to the Midwest, well, they saw the Inland Empire, agricultural, suburban. And they said, yes, those are the people, those are the normal, typical Americans. We want to find out what they think of this movie so that we can make changes before the rest of the country sees it. So the people in the Inland Empire actually got to see and impact what other people saw on their own screens in the rest of the country. They actually got to see the very first public viewings of some of the most important films in cinematic history, right here in the Inland Empire. So Fox Riverside had the very first public screening of Gone with the Wind, and the Fox San Bernardino was, again, the very first public screening for The Wizard of Oz. And going back even further to 1915, the Loring Theater in Riverside, which was later operated by Fox as the Golden State Theater, actually had the test screening for a film that was at that point known as The Klansman, and that probably partially due to the presumably negative response to that, was renamed as what we all now know as The Birth of a Nation. On its grand reopening in 1953, the ad in the newspaper did say that it was having a major studio preview with Hollywood stars in person. And
Wow.
unfortunately, because they never actually say what the preview is going to be, we have no idea what film that was. But we do know that the people in Banning that night, and there would have been a ton of them who came out for that grand reopening with all the new remodeling and the beautiful Art Deco elements and seeing what the theater looked like, they would have gotten to see something, and their reaction to it would, what the people in the rest of the country saw was partially due to what the people in Banning liked or didn't like about whichever movie that was that test screened on their grand reopening. So it would have been very exciting to be there and, be a part of that. So you talking about the three different in auditoriums at the Fox also brings up an important point that I did mention, which is about the how it did get multiplexed in order to help it compete, and that was very common during that area. That happened in, I believe, '83, and basically by the '60s, a number of lots of historic theaters were doing that in an effort to compete with suburban multiplexes, and so a number of them would do like the Fox Banning did. They would split their auditoriums. And as you said, that could lead to sound bleed issues across if they didn't do it well. So I'm glad to hear that the Fox doesn't have that issue, which is wonderful. And a number of them also, if they still have the balcony, they would turn the balcony into a separate screening area. That happened at the Fox Redlands, for instance.
Okay.
And then, as you were saying, the backstage area basically got turned into a third auditorium.
Mm-hmm.
And that also happened at the Fox Riverside and also the Fox Redlands. And those also had separate entrances for those. But and the thing is, the Banning Fox, in terms of being a multiplexed historic theater, is quite rare in the fact that most of them failed. Only one other in all of Riverside County, San Bernardino County still exists, still operates. That's multiplexed, and that's the Camelot in Palm Springs. Right. Which, of course, it was expanded. It was incredibly remodeled. You would have no idea it was a historic theater, but it was a beautiful 1960s freestanding modernist theater, tons of glass, very nice. But I'm glad it's still operating. But you would have no clue what it used to be, which is not the case with the Fox Banning at all. You can tell absolutely that is a historic theater. It is beautiful, and I'm so glad that it has managed to survive that way.
Yes, for all of us that love history, love the constant security of knowing that is Banning, and that's also our shared communal movie theater experience. It's a welcome sight. The marquee is a wonderful thing to see. It is extraordinarily strange to see it off during the pandemic. It changes the feeling of Ramsey once you get there to the corner of Ramsey and San Gorgonio. Of which I just also found out from Frank, who was still a longtime employee of the Fox, that at the very top where it curls, it used to twirl. The neon used to twirl like that, but they turned that off in the 80s remodel.
Oh, I would love to see that. Animated neon was a wonderful feature that not that many signs would take advantage of. So many times when the multiplexing would happen, or when theaters would get major remodels to try and make them seem new and fresh, and just like the suburban ones, they usually would end up replacing the marquee with something different, and whatever was the style at the time, 60s, 70s. That would happen very frequently. And so the old marquees would get destroyed generally. And so it's very fortunate that the Fox kept it. And in a number of these, when they eventually would get restoration funds, especially when they would get converted to, say, a live performance venue, then they would end up getting a replica of the original marquee put back on, or something similar. And often then the multiplexing would get removed to open the auditorium back up to the way it was. But with the Fox banning, since things are still going well, just keep on keeping on.
I will say that what I believe makes this place special is the fact that you walk in and it's not, hello, stranger. It's, oh, hello, Mary. Hello, Frank. It's a connection to real people who are then, making the experience better. Because if you come here and you watch a movie and that movie per se is the same movie you would see in our facility or in another large facility in LA or something like that, the difference between the experience is not the movie. The difference between the experience is the interaction you had with the staff. And that's what I think Banning, and of course most of our locations, because they are in smaller communities, that's what sets us apart. We have that ability to deliver that personalized, touchy-feely experience to our guests that you don't capture in a large megaplex where there's so many people walking through, no one knows anyone.
The Fox Theater is just like been here forever, and it still thrives, and it's a magnificent building. It is an absolutely gorgeous building. I can remember just looking at all the beautiful sculptured leaves on the walls, and it just reminded me of all the old-fashioned movie stars, Greta Garbo, Clark Gable, and I thought, wow, you feel like you're in a whole different world. And it just gives a lot to that experience, and I think people appreciate that.
I just hope that everyone will go out and see movies at the Fox and support this important. It's a local business, but it's also a key part of local history, and it really does a lot to support the wider historic downtown and Banning in general, local companies, and also, go out, take your family, have a fun, affordable family night out, get a bit of that experience of what moviegoing really used to be like, what it can be again, what it still is. It's a wonderful place. It's an irreplaceable place.
Yes, it is.
And I hope that everyone appreciates it and supports it.
So this is the wrap of our first episode of Exploring the Past. My special thanks to Damon with Deep Place Entertainment. You've been an awesome host. Thanks for allowing us access to the Fox. And Frank, you're an amazing tour host. I really appreciate you showing us the projector rooms and all the special places of the Fox. This is our main institution of seeing movies here in Banning in the past, and it's a wonderful place that we need to preserve and patronize to make sure it's here for almost another 100 years for moviegoers to enjoy all the films that we like seeing. So, catch us at the next episode.
Way back when I worked for the second owner, Tom DeSimone, he was a famous movie director, hell now, But one of his girls he hired as a manager, she was upstairs doing paperwork, and I don't know why I wasn't there, but anyway, she did something. Anyway, something made her stood up. There's like a mirror up by the projector room. She stood up. She saw this woman like in her period piece, probably 1930s or something. And she said she was fully dressed, long dress. She said she saw her walking. We had a mirror here. She said she started walking and like she went right through. And it tripped her out like, oh my God. So yeah, that was.